Oh, so I guess we're going to do another in my line of these book discussion things. I don't know why I do them. Well, I do know why. I'm a slut for attention, and some people seem to like them, maybe even more than the game stuff. And, you know, with the games, I have to play them out, and I'm putting out all the videos for them. They get very few views, but I feel like that's the important part of the game, not me talking about it particularly, but me experiencing it, and allowing you to experience some of the same frustrations and enjoyment that I have. With the books, though, there's not a lot to say, so I feel kind of blocked. I basically chose to do this for one book, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But one of the weird things is why I pick a particular book. Like, I read 2 fantasy books, both relatively decent. One of them, I didn't dig it out. It's called Airs and Graces. It's like the second book of a series. Fantasy books always come in fucking series. Speaking of which, I think I found one of the Martin books that I don't have. Eventually I'll have them all and have to read them. I read the first one, and I think I collected another one, and I may have gotten that same one again, or another one to fill it in. But I enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed watching things about the series. I don't have any kind of cable shows, so I didn't watch the whole thing. But I really kind of enjoyed the dissing on the last couple seasons of it. But yeah, one of them is this Airs and Graces, which is well enough written. The storyline is from the point of view of, you know, this young girl who has a flying horse and is working in an academy, is studying at an academy for girls with flying horses. And it's, you know, I found it not very believable, the world that it was based in. For a number of reasons, most of them having to do, you know, I can put aside the, hey, horse with bat wings, how would that work? I don't know, you know, whatever. It's not a magical world, which is the whole thing. It's like, this is the only weird thing in the whole world. There's a little bit of magic, maybe, kind of, but, you know, it's like hedge magic type stuff, charms and things like that. And never, you know, obvious that it's really there. But rather in the character interactions and the way people present and whatnot. I just do not buy the power structure that I'm seeing in it. Now, maybe the first book was better that way, and explains this is what happens when you find books in, you know, the little free libraries, you know, or at Goodwill or wherever I get books. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's okay. And, you know, I kept it, which most fantasy and science fiction I'll just keep unless it really, really is unpleasant to me. Just because I will reread those given the chance. Second one actually was rather good, I thought. Is this Aragon? This is the first book in a series, supposedly. I don't know if the rest of the series was written. This one came out in 2002. So if more books haven't come out in the series, it's probably a dead letter. But I found it actually a really enjoyable story about a boy and his dragon. You know, very heroic type of stuff, but it was well enough written. I didn't think the story was all that exciting in and of itself. A lot of stuff was predictable, but, you know, it sufficed. I read both of them rather rapidly, mainly because I'm trying to avoid life and don't want to do worse things, which I did get caught up in a little bit about a week ago or so. And that caused me to crash pretty hard. Reading doesn't cause me to fall into the same kind of despair that playing really, really dumb video games does. And I'm talking about like the ones where all I'm really doing is clicking. You know? But for whatever reason. But what's odd is these are books that I actually enjoyed reading. This second one, Aragon, I would actually recommend because I thought it was good enough. I thought it was good enough that I would like to find another, another book in the series, but I'm not willing to pay, what the Amazon booksellers usually charge, which is like a penny plus $5 in shipping or something. I'm like, nah, it's not that good. I got tons of books I can read, But I would keep my eye out if I could possibly remember. It was kind of random because it doesn't even look like a fantasy book. It doesn't, it didn't have the this cover, sleeve, whatever on it. It just had a name which looked like it might be, so I took a peek at it. But this is the one that I chose to do the video for. And this is one of those, what the hell, why did I pick this up? Well, long ago, first of all, it's episodic little stories. And sometimes I enjoy things like that. But also long ago, I remembered one like called Bitching or something like that, which was just like women's views on men. But it was sort of this collection of many different women. It was probably a late 70s book. And I found it really kind of humorous and enjoyable. And a lot of times I find things like that. I remember I used to read baseball story books that way. And just these things that had little snippets of something that happened, here and there that were interesting, exciting. So this is some woman dating Amy that decided, I don't know when, fairly early in the era, 2006, to basically write a blog about having 50 dates, and she started the blog before she had any of them, but she wanted to chronicle her dating life. And seemed like it could be an interesting idea, especially since the first, ones she was doing were off of the earliest of the online dating kind of that was going on. I don't remember how early it started, but this was like a paid site when most sites are free now, of the same type that the free sites are, where you just put up a picture and and some profile information and hope people contact you and whatever. And the world was a little different back then. For example, nowadays, well, I don't know about nowadays. Back when I was rather prolific on OkCupid, strangely enough, well, obviously with me, I don't like dating. I don't like the concept of it. So it's maybe not that strange that I never went on a date with anybody there. But I did meet my wife there, so, there was that. But yeah, I enjoyed that because first of all, you had to sign up for it to take their quizzes and stuff. And that was sort of the big sell for that site. And then as I got more kind of hooked into it, they had a whole forum section, and there were a couple of different fora that I was interested in and watched, and trolled a great deal. It was a site where there was a lot of trolling going on, but there were a couple of little corners where the trolling was less egregious, or where it was more deserved. And those were kind of the places I went to. And there was kind of an alt fetish type region that I kind of became the pet troll of. Because I would largely troll the trolls. But anyway, I really enjoyed that kind of interaction. And the idea of being on a dating site in and of itself is totally useless to me. I mean, people who are going to approach me directly just due to my picture and or profile probably aren't someone that I'm going to be interested in. And I mean, I put a lot into my profile because I was interested in expressing a lot about myself there, just in case. But you know, people who are just browsing through profiles and trying to make a decision, the things that I put in there, you know, things like wargaming, and you know, that I'm antisocial, that I'm not going to contact you, stuff like that, aren't really the things that are going to attract someone in. And especially, you know, I think I started on the site while I was still in grad school, and then was there in Phoenix for a while. I think I had conversations with a couple of people there, and some of them may not have been wholly based on my interaction in the forum. But a lot of what I did, a lot of the people I connected with there online were because of chatting on the forum. And also, you know, and then things went to other places or whatever. And again, that's, you know, how I ended up meeting my wife, was through discussions on the forum, and something about my way of writing and my sense of humor there, which I can't apply anywhere anymore. BGG, I learned fairly early, my style of humor and trolling, admittedly, is verboten there. You know, anything that seems anything like it could be a direct personal attack, even the use of the word fanboy. But then now I'm finding even Facebook, where honestly, Facebook is not a place where you meet new people. You know, that's the problem. It doesn't have that forum structure where you jump into a discussion and either say, you know, what you think and debate things, or just kind of snipe from the sidelines, both of which I like doing. All you're really doing is connecting with people you know already, or whatever, you know. And I don't find that at all useful, but I have a couple of spam mates there that I enjoy playing with, but I can't even make the jokes that I like to make there. Sometimes, you know, very satirical statements that now get you in trouble because you say something like, kill all the children, and, you know, I don't know if they think, you know, I'm going to influence someone by saying that, or whatever, but, you know, it's just, it's too likely that I will end up in Facebook jail from that. But anyway, getting back to this is at a different era where there's clearly not that kind of forum, but the thing that I was most used to at the dating site just a couple of years after this was kind of the women getting, you know, they show up on the website and they get like 100 messages immediately, you know, and just constantly getting them every day, which is kind of the, yeah, I mean, there's nothing I'm going to say, I'm not going to see somebody and say, wow, I really want to meet this person from their profile. I almost don't care what they have to say in it, right? And so what am I going to do? Hey, you're pretty. I don't know. No, I think that's stupid. I think that makes no sense. And I'm not going to run into somebody with my interests expressed there, or never had. I would look, but they're not the kind of interests you want to advertise on a dating site. Anyway, this seemed like it was a lot more troublesome, and but that led me, to think, well, maybe this would be interesting to see, what's going on here. And it starts out that way and then wanders into, meeting people at parties and here, there, and otherwise. And it all could have been interesting just because, yes, there are some really kind of awkward type of stories, but her writing isn't amusing enough to justify this. It's not like she turns wonderful phrases or anything. It's just kind of like, okay, maybe if I cared. But then the other thing is she's so eminently unlikable. And this is the real thing that really, I mean, I read through it because it's good bathroom reading, and if I can read something, if I can push through something, I will do so in general. And this was not, hard to read. I just couldn't really give a shit about her. My feelings were, wow, what a selfish, entitled bitch, and that's what kind of drew me to bring to this, because first of all, she's like, struggling writer, doesn't have a job, is trying to make money by reselling stuff, by going to thrift shops and then reselling stuff on eBay. And I'm like, well, I have sort of a fundamental dislike of that kind of means of making an income. Largely because I'm someone who likes hunting for stuff and finding, not necessarily a great deal, but, if everything, the great deals are part of what make it exciting, right? And if everything is getting scooped up by people who are out there for the profit motive, well, that takes away one of my pleasures, and I don't get the same pleasure by picking it up on eBay. It's the pleasure of going to a yard sale or going to a Goodwill and seeing something like I did with Talisman or whatever. And one of my friends who's dead now used to do that a lot, and I was like, wow, that's really a shitty thing to do, man. Because and he would get his thrill out of hunting for things, but hunting for things because he knew they had resale value. And it just bummed me out to know that there was this kind of thing going on. And anytime I'm reminded of that, that disturbs me. But that's not a reason to just dislike her. My friend was my friend, I just was really bummed that people were doing that. Rather, it's that, here she is basically, but expecting that everybody that she goes on a date with, follows these sort of 1940s or 50s rules. And some of them I kind of get, like ideas like walking someone home or giving them a lift home or whatever. Yeah, sure, that makes some sense, because transport may be difficult or whatever if there's no buses running at that time. But just really expensive tastes and insisting that, the other person pays, and seeming to, have these sort of, what I found really weird was these sort of strikes that are like, well, if he doesn't just pay, that's pretty much a non-starter. Even though some of the people she's dating are in the same kind of economic situation she's in. And similarly, a number of these little, if this person has this little quirk, they're just no good anymore. And what I found kind of funny was these were more important to her than like physical attraction and connection and stuff like that, which I just found incredibly disturbing. I mean, it's like, what are you, a fucking mercenary here? But anyway, and then when she meets men who are equally mercenary about it, willing to play her game and pay and act like the perfect gentleman on the date and everything, she's disgusted by the fact that like they're not monogamous and don't want to settle down and stuff like that and don't want to have children and all this kind of crap. And it's like, okay, look, whatever, but just not just a, oh, this isn't my kind of person, but almost making these judgment calls on them in that sort of way. It's like, well, what do you fucking think you deserve the way you are? But that's actually more or less the why I'm talking about this. Is more to do with the way that her whole attitude was about things. And it really reminds me of such an earlier era, one where women wouldn't work, couldn't work at a reasonable job, one where they had to rely on the man to court them, etc. And that's not the world that we're in anymore. My feel, and then these things like, oh, if somebody offers to take me out for coffee, I would just say no. Kind of like, well, geez, man, you want someone to see if they like you enough to spend any time with you, and you want them to make a big investment up front? What the fuck, man? It's just so fucking disturbing to me. Like, to me, the idea of, like, I wouldn't want to go out to dinner with someone I don't know, even going Dutch, because I'm committing to a fairly long amount of time and an expense myself and whatnot. Whereas, hey, let's catch some coffee, chat for a little while, none of this is stated, but let's catch a cup of coffee at some point. Great, we do that. If we like each other, then we move on to maybe going for a walk after the coffee or whatever. And if we just end up hanging out and really liking each other, well, then there's some possibility that we might want to get back together, get together again and do something else or whatever. But the whole thought of like, and I went on, I think, one date in my life. So you can see I'm just negative on this whole thing. Something that I would really consider this sort of formal date type thing, where I asked the girl specifically, hey, do you want to, and I think it was go to a movie, and she was somebody I knew from a bar. And we went to we actually stayed for a couple of movies, because there was Rocky Homo afterwards, and then went to the bar and hung out there for a while, and then she ends up like finding someone else, which hadn't been the case. Like, I had known her for a long time, but somehow on this particular, it was like, it was some kind of special day. It was like near New Year's or something. I don't know. It may have been New Year's. But it was kind of a, hey, why don't we do this as kind of an exciting thing, And it was just such a miserable experience in so many ways, and probably for both of us, because she ended up finding some guy who like wanted to live a hippie lifestyle somewhere, and they ran off to a religious compound or something, which I thought was pretty cool. But hey, it's also not the best way to get to meet someone. Like for me, the idea of a movie is definitely horrible because we're just watching a movie. The idea of dinner, you know, this may be more to do with my style. When I sit down for dinner with someone in any kind of situation, I'm kind of concentrating on the food. A walk is a lot more of an interesting type of experience to get to know somebody during, because walking and talking go together. Eating and talking, not so much. They seem almost intrinsically opposed to each other. Drinking and trying to meet someone is a horrible mixture, you know. And she's meeting guys at bars and stuff too. And I'm like, wow, the last thing I'd want to do is try to see if I really like somebody while I'm getting drunk, you know, and that's really what it is. And it's like, that's not to say, I mean, my first wife, I basically, we went to a bar, but I brought a chaperone along. Just because I wanted to make sure that there was somebody we could each talk to. Like, I had no idea if I could talk to this girl for like, you know, hours or whatever. It ended up, yes. She was very cute to me, and, you know, we ended up kind of making our mutual friend probably feel somewhat like a third wheel in the whole thing. But I thought it would be much better to have a situation where we each had a shared connection sitting there at the table to talk with. So, and there, yes, we did get buzzed, perhaps even drunk. But anyway, less of a book discussion in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, my opinions on it are there, but there's sort of a more of a personal history type thing in this, I guess, which isn't too surprising given who we're talking about here. All right, cheerio. Gotta go do an interview.